It's the CFG, and welcome to a Confident Fat Guy podcast. What's going on, beautiful people? It is the CFG, and welcome to another episode of the Confident Fat Guy podcast. On this week's episode, we are going to talk about my journey as a firefighter and my ego that ruined it. My journey began when I was just a little kid. I've always wanted to be a firefighter as far back as I can remember, watching fire trucks in a parade as a young boy and seeing them going down the street, lights and sirens. It was just intriguing, and I wanted to know more, and I wanted to see more. And as a little kid, I even chased fire trucks on my bike as a kid. As I got older, I moved to different towns, and we moved right across the street from Station 3 here in town. And I would sit on my porch for hours, and anytime that fire truck got a call, I would chase it on my bike. I do not recommend that. Just disclaimer right there. As time went on, I still wanted to be a firefighter, and that's the only thing I ever wanted to do. That was my goal after high school. And in 2005, it was either in the newspaper or it was a radio ad, but the local fire department on the south side of town, they were having an open house or a job fair. I don't remember which one, and I couldn't drive yet, and my mom took me. And I wasn't 18 yet, so I couldn't be a full-fledged member. So I became an explorer, which the explorer program is, I believe, from 13 to 18, and pretty much you could train with the firefighters, but you couldn't go on calls and you couldn't respond from home. Now, if there was a special scenario where they needed manpower to do like overhaul, we could take a truck, not licensed sirens or anything like that, and go to scene and help them out. It definitely wasn't an easy thing for me because I was still in high school and I was going through the goth stage. I had different color hair, I'd paint my fingernails, and I just didn't have that professionalism. And come to find out years later that the chief at the time wanted to get rid of me because of how I looked. But we had this special training where we went to a fellow firefighter's house that was just injured in a car accident, and I worked really hard. I actually got praised for the work I did. So after, I want to say, 6 months as an explorer, I turned 18 and I put my application in. And mind you, I did not have a lot of fans. No one really liked me. It was a bunch of old school guys, old school firefighting values. But they brought me on, and the first few years as a rookie firefighter was not easy at all. Again, I had no fans. I wasn't liked. Um, my very After all my training and all that, I got certified. I was able to make runs. Well, even though the truck wasn't full when we get runs, I wouldn't be allowed to get on a truck. I was treated poorly, and it was really disheartening. And I think that's when my attitude started to change a little bit because I was like, you know what? Forget these guys. I'm going to show them up. And I would work hard. I would train hard. I would show up to runs. And after a few years, it started to get a little bit easier. People were starting to fizzle out and retire. I started to get a good reputation as being a good firefighter. Surprisingly, my first year, my rookie year, I got a Rookie of the Year award. Um, Probably mostly due to my first run I had. Unfortunately, it was a car accident with fatality, and my deputy chief at the time was like, "You're cutting him out." I don't know if that was like an initiation or to see if I could handle it because it was a pretty gnarly wreck. And I think that right there is what gave me the cold heart. Not really a cold heart, but I could block emotions because I knew it was the job and I knew what was at stake and I knew what I was going to see. That department was everything to me. Being a firefighter was everything to me. And unfortunately, it, that's one of the reasons it cost me my relationship with my daughter, is because that fire department was more important than anything. After a few years, my reputation was pretty solid. They could count on me. They knew I would show up and I'd get the job done. My third year on the department, I got a Chiefs Award just because at the time, I didn't get involved in the politics and I didn't get involved in the drama. I trained hard, I worked hard. That's when I started to put in my chief's head that I was interested in being an officer. Granted, it was only my third year in, but at that time, my ego started to come up, and I really thought I was the best. I was a good firefighter, but I was not as good as firefighter as I thought I was. But at that time, I never had the opportunity to sit in an officer seat. I never had the opportunity to run a fire scene or any emergency scene. I was a back seat guy or I was a driver. Um, by mid 2010, I was starting to get bummed out and I was starting to get burned out just because I didn't feel like I was getting the opportunities that I thought that I deserved. Disclaimer, please do not ever think you deserve something. Work hard and earn it. Just remember, you're never entitled to anything. In 2010, I met my son's mom, and it was time for a break, and I resigned. And obviously, the relationship between me and my son's mom ended horribly. And I was away from the department for about a year and a half, and I was depressed. I was miserable. I was broke, and I really, really missed being on a fire truck. But before I left, I knew my ego was bad, and I knew that I was on the verge of burning bridges. So I called a few people and I'm like, look, I'm so sorry. I'm not the same person. And really, it was furthest from the truth. As much as I thought that I was ready to go back, I was not. I ended up calling the assistant chief at the time and asked him if I wanted to come back, if I was welcome. And he's like, yeah, absolutely, just put in an application. So I did, and they gave me an interview, and they did bring up the fact of my bad attitude and my ego before I left. And I assured them that I wasn't the same person. And again, it was furthest from the truth. When I came back, it was a different administration. There was a lot of new people, so I kept my head down. I really wasn't humbled, but I was still a senior guy to a lot of people there, and I needed to prove myself to these young firefighters that they could trust me. Well, after a certain time, I was officially the senior guy. I was the third highest member there. And because of my reputation and my certifications, I was able to be a part of my first officer's exam. I believe there was 10 of us, and I believe I made the top 4 or 5. Well, here comes the ego. The last people that were underneath me, 5 to 10, I rubbed it in their face. It was wrong of me. I should have never done that. But my ego was so bad that it didn't matter. And in hindsight, they never wanted to promote me. I really didn't have any people there that believed in me. I was just the goofy guy that said goofy things just to get people to laugh. And maybe sometimes it didn't make sense, but I was just trying to entertain. A year or two later, the last of the senior members above me either retired or moved on to different things, and I was officially the senior guy. Pretty much that meant that if a captain or a chief didn't respond to a call, I would be in the officer seat. I was trusted. I could run a fire scene, and they knew I could take care of our men and women. In my head, I was ready to be an officer. They ended up bringing on another guy from another state that was actually a lieutenant in his department. At that time, we didn't have lieutenants, it was just captains and chiefs. And they made a special promotion just for him. But the catch was they couldn't just promote him to lieutenant. And I was the only one that had the requirements to go against him. Yeah, I was nervous, but I knew I wasn't going to let this opportunity pass me. In my head, I deserved this position. I told myself this guy, he didn't have anything on me, and I wasn't going to let him just come in here and take the spot. It was a two-part test. It was structural firefighting and a car accident scenario. And when it came to structural firefighting, I blew him out of the water. I aced it, but I was so amped up, and my ego, I went in there and I failed the car accident scenario because I missed some steps. And he outperformed me and he got the position. I was devastated. And I told myself, I'm going to ruin this guy. So now, instead of me being the officer seat, I was back in the back seat again. I was a hose jockey again. Because now, if a captain or a chief didn't show up, it was the lieutenant. The lieutenant was the third highest ranking officer. But what I didn't know was the whole time that he was a lieutenant, if a captain or a chief didn't show up, he relied on me. And he had my back. And I didn't find that out until months later. After runs, he would go back to the chief and he'd be like, hey, this guy needs to be an officer too. I tried so hard to prove that they made a mistake, and this guy had my back. He was promoting me, he was rooting for me. At that time, the only captain that we had resigned due to injury, and we were only left with two chiefs and one lieutenant. One day, we got toned out to a really bad structure fire. We were there for hours. And when we finally got back to the station and started cleaning the hoses and the tools and getting the truck back ready to be in service, my assistant chief and fire chief went into the office for about 30 minutes. And after about 30 minutes, they called me into the office, and the fire chief just started a normal conversation with me. And then all of a sudden, he said to me, do you realize we don't have a captain anymore? And I'm like, yeah, I do. And he was like, congratulations, I'm promoting you to lieutenant. I'm not gonna lie, I bawled like a baby. All the years that I thought I wasn't good enough or that I had to prove myself, it all came forward. And I was so emotional. And the one words that came out of my chief's mouth that day, and I should have stuck onto it, was don't be like any other officer. Because in the past, we have had some crappy officers. And I assured him, that won't happen. And I always told myself that if I ever got a leadership role, that I was going to be the best officer ever. And again, I've used this word a lot. It was furthest from the truth. The first few months wasn't bad at all. I was learning the role more, learning how to be an officer more. And me and the other lieutenant, we gelled. Like, we became a tag team. And I really thought I had a brother. But after a while, things started to deteriorate really bad. And he didn't like my decisions. I didn't like his decisions. And we clashed really hard. And there's a part of me that feels really bad because he was also married to somebody on the department. And I thought I was just helping a brother out. And because she was not a very good person, but it ended up hurting his marriage. About 5 months of being in the lieutenant's position, I pretty much lost everybody that ever trusted me. The bridge was burnt down. I had the it's my way or the highway attitude. I got lazy. I got incomplacent. I didn't take training seriously. I lost all respect for my peers because of my attitude and because how lazy I was and incomplacent. And I didn't think about the department like I should have. I thought about me and me only. But hey, here's the kicker to everything. So the first lieutenant, he ended up quitting because of personal issues. And so now it was just the two chiefs and me. And a captain's promotion came up. And when you're lieutenant, your next step is captain. There was nobody to run against me. And probably reluctantly, they promoted me as captain. And that was the worst thing ever, to giving a broke and disturbed, depressed person more power. It was horrible. And it got to the point where my fire chief was telling other people that if we got on scene, do not let me take command. It was bad, and we had several talks about my cockiness and my attitude, and I just didn't care. I worked so hard and for so many years to finally be an officer, and I ruined it. And the worst part about it was is the assistant chief was getting ready to retire as well, and that was my next position. I was gonna finally be a chief. And it kills me to know that if I was in the right state of mind and I was mentally healthy, I had the opportunity to be assistant chief, and I ruined it. And I think that's what the one regret that I have the most. By the middle of August 2016, I was done. I was out. I checked out. I didn't want to do it anymore, but I didn't want to give up on that department. I had nothing else besides my kids to live for. And then I got a job opportunity, and it was my way out. I pulled one more shift and I said goodbye. And I'm not going to lie to you, after the end of that shift, I walked around to every truck and all the memories that flooded me of going around to every single apparatus that we had. The 12 years of memories. And again, I'm not going to lie, I kissed every truck goodbye because that place was my safe place. That place was my home. That place meant more to me than anything. Cleaning out my gear, taking my boots out of my pants, taking my plaque off my helmet. I cried the whole entire time. And right before I shut the door for the last time, I turned around one more time just to say goodbye. And I left. Surprisingly, about 3 weeks later, I got an email, which to me, I figured those guys were going to throw a party since I was gone. They were going to be all happy. But I got an email that they were actually throwing me a party. And it was really nice. Like, I was humbled because all the BS that I showed and how I didn't live up to anybody's expectations as an officer, I felt appreciated. And they decorated the fire station really nice. We cooked out, we played a few games of volleyball, and they got me a really cool retirement gift. Um, and after that, I was done. But I spent so long blaming that department and the people that were there for my downfall. And really, it was all my fault. All the bad mouth, it was not the department's fault, it was mine. Yeah, was there other drama involved? Absolutely. But 85% of my downfall was my fault. I spent 3 years blaming that department and blaming everybody else for why I was the way I was. And in 2019, I was at work and I'm not sure if I dehydrated or if my blood pressure tanked. They're still not sure to this day. But I passed out at work and I smacked my head off the concrete like a basketball. I got a severe concussion. I got panic attacks, anxiety. All my mental health came out. I finally found a doctor that understood my issues, and it took a good 6 months to a year, but I was happy again, and I had time to think, and I had time to get clarity, and I had time to heal. And that's when I realized that everything that I was doing wasn't anybody else's fault, it was mine. Around that time, a former fire chief passed away. He was a mentor of mine, and I was kind of nervous to go there because I knew there was going to be members of that department, but I had to face the music, and I told myself, whatever comes out of it, I'm going to take like a man and take it in the chin because I deserved it. And actually, it was a real pleasant experience, and I got to talk to a lot of members and apologize and let them know that I wasn't the same person, and this time I was speaking the truth. And really surprising is they were all accepting of it, and I even called and text or Facebook messaged some past members and apologized, and I got accepted with warm arms again, and it was pretty cool because I thought that the damage that I caused was unrepairable. I've been away from that department almost 10 years now, and I'm happier than ever. Yeah, I do get the bug again sometimes here and there, but I'm retired. And honestly, a couple months ago, I got a phone call that I never thought I would ever get. There's new administration now at that department, and I got a phone call to come back. I was humbled. For the first time, I was humbled. The 12 years I was at that department, I finally felt humbled. And I was surprised that they would even consider wanting me back. But I respectfully declined, and he knew my reasonings for declining it. The moral of this story is don't let your ego and attitude ruin the good that can possibly happen to you. Keep your head down, work hard, stay positive, and earn everything. And once you accomplish the things you want to accomplish, don't stop. That's your time to work even harder. And I wish I would have been more mature, and I wish that I was more clear headed to know that back then because it's a great department. They got two really good chiefs now, and from what I hear, is their membership is pretty strong, and I wish them nothing but the best. I'll always consider that place home, even though I haven't stepped in that place in 10 years. To any young firefighter that's listening to this podcast, you're stepping into the best job in the world. Don't let your ego come between you and success. I want to thank everybody for joining me today on another episode of the Confident Fat Guy podcast. I do have an idea for a future episode. I think I want to do a Q&A episode. Any podcast platform you're listening to this podcast on, there should be a fan mail button. Drop me some comments, drop me some questions, and we'll see how many questions I get. And if I get enough, then we'll do a Q&A episode. I would really love to interact with you guys. If there's anything that you want to talk about that maybe I can help you with, shoot me a fan mail. Also, if you would like to support the channel, there's also a support button. Any support goes right back into the podcast and the brand, and you will get a special shout out on a future episode. Again, I want to thank everybody so much. I never thought this podcast, I didn't think anybody would really listen to my stories, and only after 3 episodes, I'm almost to 50 downloads, and I can't thank you guys enough. I'll talk to y'all next week. Remember, stay positive, stay humble, stay focused, love yourself, and love each other.